Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Prez. In this episode 562, a special live one. I'm joined as always by my co-host Prez, that is at _Presidente on Twitter. Prez, how you doing?
Good. Sufficiently caffeinated. Read my morning NBA slap. What more do you need?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm assuming your caffeine intake has increased with the newest member of your family that's joined you over the past few months.
Yes, I already had a lot of caffeine before that, and it is even more.
Sounds like you could use more.
I very much could. I may obtain some in the middle of this this live pod.
We're looking forward to keep us updated on your caffeine intake. We're not here to talk about your caffeine intake though. We're here to talk about the Knicks, who they did this thing. It was really cool. They won a basketball game the other day. It's the first time they'd won a basketball game in what feels like 84 years. But it was cool. It was cool. They actually blew out a team that they are much better than. So I enjoyed that. I hope they can carry that forward, and we'll talk about how they can or if they can do that here today. But before I do that, I do have to say, before we get into the show, here's your twice weekly reminder that the Strickland has a Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/the Strickland. We are truly appreciative for any support you're able to give. The $6 tier gives you access to full episodes of this pod, which today is free for everybody, and also the Strickland Discord, where you get a chance to chat with staff and other fans. There's also the $9 tier, which gives you access to even more podcasts. So that's a great place to start if you want to support us. And if you support us enough, if enough people sign up, I can stop reading these ads, which should be a selling point unto itself. Also, thank you to our sponsor, FanDuel, for, sponsoring this podcast. If you have any betting needs, FanDuel has you covered. Okay, let's get into the Knicks. The Knicks won a basketball game. It was 120-66. It's the biggest margin of victory in Knicks history. It was complete domination. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. I think it was needed. It was needed, right? There's no question about it. It was needed. It was necessary. So it was good that they did that. But I don't feel any different about this team than I did prior to the game, in the sense of, like, beating the Nets is kind of the bare minimum. And, that's how they should have handled their business against the Kings. That's how they should have handled their business against the Mavericks on Monday on MLK Day, which was, that was probably the most. That's the worst loss since Fizdale was the coach. Like, I really believe that. That's not to say the Knicks never had any bad losses under Tom Thibodeau, but there was the way they came out in that game. I think at halftime, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the fast break points were literally like 30-2. So not only did the Knicks play poorly, they also clearly were not giving anything resembling a professional effort in that game against a team that was depleted. The Mavericks were without
Daniel
off
Gafford before the game.
Yep, they were, and the Knicks again. They were without Daniel Gafford. They were without PJ Washington. They're without D'Angelo Russell. It doesn't matter. You can go on and on. The point is, the Mavericks were, they're running a skeleton crew out there, really, and the Knicks just didn't have anything. And we can talk about tactics. We can talk about strategies and are the Knicks executing this? Are they not executing this? What's going on with their defensive scheme? Why haven't they been able to, why is the offense kind of stagnant? We can always talk about that. That game boiled down to nothing but effort. It really did not matter about the schemes. That was purely about effort. And that starting five, I don't really know what to say other than the fact that as a collective group, they completely failed. And again, look, you can look at that Nets game and it was great. It was awesome that they smoked that team that they should smoke. But I still would be lying to you if I told you that I have major reservations over whether or not that's actually our best five because I don't see it. Even in that Nets game, I thought the best minutes of that game came when it was not that 5-man lineup on the floor. I thought the lineups, that were with Deuce or with Shamit or with Mitchell Robinson and, some of those starters or whatever it was, I thought those were better lineups. And I'm just going to continue to believe that because that's what the numbers have said since the start of last year. That's what the numbers have said this year, and that's the reality. And I guess like the biggest thing I can point to as concerning to me is the effort and the buy-in, and those things are definitely they were lacking anyway during the 2-9 stretch the Knicks had prior to the Nets game. Um, but just at a very, very basic level, the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau, and part of the reason was they wanted to take a more collaborative approach. Part of that collaborative approach, we assumed was, hey, this starting lineup was bad that we used for most last year, and then we had to change it in game 3, and we changed it with a double big lineup, right? So whatever you think the Knicks' best starting lineup was, that's the way they went in that series. Now, I think part of the reason you fired Tom Thibodeau is because of that lineup failing and because he did not take a collaborative approach, that, he was not open to maybe suggestions from the front office or the analytics department and analysts on the staff, whatever the case may be. And the assumption was coming into the season that part of, the collaborative approach and is taking on board suggestions and that would not be the starting lineup moving forward. And yet we have arrived back to this starting lineup, which is pretty undoubtedly at this point not the Knicks' best starting lineup. It's not the Knicks' best closing lineup, probably. It's not really anything to do with their best 5-man groups. And yet we have arrived back to this being the group that we are starting games with. And largely we have been starting games poorly. Now, obviously, we've had to mix and match, and it hasn't all been that 5-man group because we've had Brunson out for a bit. We've had Josh Hart out for a bit, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, when we're at full strength right now, that's our 5-man lineup. And I find it very concerning that that's the case because there's no evidence to suggest it is our best 5-man lineup. And I assume part of the reason you moved on from Tom Thibodeau was his stubbornness in sticking with it as a starting lineup. So to end back up here, to me, that's like a major red flag of something is up. I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure what the reasoning is. If it's about egos, it's about, oh, this guy can't be benched because he won't be happy or whatever. I mean, fine. Maybe that's the case. But I mean, if it's really that difficult, then maybe harder conversations need to be had about how you address that situation. Because if you're starting a lineup because of the politics of it, that's just not a great place to be organizationally. It doesn't speak very well of the coach that you handpicked to kind of come in and implement these alleged changes that we wanted to see. In terms of changing your offensive system and all these type of things, that's all great. But if you can't get the very basic level of buy-in to change a starting lineup that is not good enough, that's very concerning to me, organizationally, and how it speaks to the front office, to the coaching staff, and even to the players. If it's that much of a kind of debilitating argument that you can't even sell it to these guys. And again, I talked about like it could be, we talk about Josh Hart all the time. There's a lot of reasons to believe it's not Josh Hart. Maybe that should go to the bench. And obviously that makes things even more tricky given the price tag.
That is what makes it tricky because Josh Hart contractually is the only one who you can like within normal politics of NBA rosters send to the bench, right? Mikal, you traded what you traded for him, even if you didn't trade that much, just like how much he makes, how much he's gonna make, all that stuff. Like, you mentioned that in the Nets game, the 3 wings line, even then, was like a little weird. I noticed the same thing, particularly on offense. On defense, it was great to see them lock in a little bit more because all 3 of them particularly McCall and OG, have been dog shit for a bit on defense, and obviously playing the Nets, who stink, makes it easy to appear locked in on defense. So we'll see what happens versus Philly. But on offense, it's just there's a hesitancy. They all have some similarities in parts of the court that they like to play and how they like to cut, things like that. Sometimes teams put their centers on OG. Sometimes they put their centers on Hart. Both of those guys can shoot, but you can see sometimes they're like, do I stay still? Do I space somewhere else? Do I cut in that situation? Do I go set the screen for Brunson when when I know Brunson and Cat wants to get Cat going, and da-da-da. So there's just like enough hesitancy of role because of role overlap. And I think McCall has been worse than Hart. I think McCall, like lately, McCall started the season excellently. Him and OG have been in a real shooting funk. So, making shots is the easiest way to shake a funk in the NBA. Making shots and trying hard. And that's something they both did versus the Nets. So hopefully we see the end of this terrible shooting stretch from them. It's not going to be as easy to continue to make shots versus the other teams, right? Like a lot was made even during the good part of the season that of the fact that the Knicks probably had the best jump shooting results of any team in the NBA, despite the lowest amount of easy shots created by certain metrics. So you always expected some regression there, to be honest, even if OG and McCall are good at hitting contested jumpers and things like that. But you don't expect the kind of shooting they had this last month. And that's not even close to the worst of the problems, right? Like that we've been discussing. Like versus Dallas, every single wing, including the ones who normally give you varying levels of plus defensive effort, Shamit, OG, McCall, were terrible in terms of decision making and floating and just not paying attention in transition or in the half court. So it's not easy, right? But even if the issue is you have to tell Josh Hart you're going to the bench, even if Josh Hart's like, this bullshit, I'm better than Mikal Bridges. Mikal hasn't even done shit. He can't even keep anybody in front of him right now. And he's not hitting jumpers. And he never gets to the free throw line. What the fuck is this? Like, if that's the thing you got, the ego trip you got to massage, then so be it. Part of that is just getting these guys to be good soldiers. And part of that is like, it's the starting lineup. Adjust your rotation. If the politics are that bad, like the good news is the rest of the game doesn't have to revolve back to your starters. It does affect the rotation, of course.
I just think it speaks to a bigger issue. Like if the politics are that bad, then I don't know, man. If you're the front office, that says something about the team you assembled. Like you assembled a team with, look, I think it's okay that, because let's be honest, I think most people would have looked at the starting lineup last year and been like, okay, maybe it's not your best lineup, but it should be a good lineup. It should be a really good lineup. And obviously that has not been the case for the better part of, whatever, the last however many months they've kind of been together, 15 months now. Okay, that's fine. So can we move Josh Hart to the bench? Apparently that's a big no-no. That's not going to happen. He's gotten too accustomed to the life of a starter. Okay, well, then what are we doing here? Like, to me, and I'm not saying that they need to make a big trade right now because I don't know what big trade is available to them at this deadline that makes sense and is prudent and serves their both, immediate and long-term goals. But I think it does say something if you kind of go in, let's say you go into the, through the trade deadline into the postseason and, whatever, we'll see wherever the how it ends up. But if you don't win a championship, and part of the reason you don't win a championship is you're starting games with this lineup that is bad or not good enough, or not on par with other teams, at the top end of the playoffs, their starting lineups. If that's part of the reason of it, well, then guess what? Like, you gotta have. It's time to make a move, and a move that
If that
ultimately
happens, that is exactly
moves one of
what's
those
gonna happen.
guys.
One of if I will 100% bet that like if that happens in the playoffs, if like we still can't make this three wings lineup be very good. It doesn't even, like you said, it doesn't even have to be our like death lineup, so to speak. It just should be fucking good because they're all individually, in theory, good players, right? But if there's redundancy there, right, which could be any number of reasons, right? None of those three guys are really advantage creators. None of those guys are, OG until this year hasn't been a high volume 3-point shooter. He hasn't been low volume, but like until this year, none of those three guys were high volume
Well,
3-point shooters.
none
None
of
of
them
those
are
guys
elite
really,
3-point shooters.
none of those are elite 3-point shooters. None of them are above average ball handler. Josh Hart is an above average ball handler, but he's
None of
not
them
an
want to take
advantage
threes above the
creator.
break.
OG will take them. He just started fucking missing them. That's the problem. And Mikal is the same thing. Like earlier in the year, I was very pleasantly surprised by their willingness and success taking them, but you got to keep shooting that. Josh Hart can't be more willing than you above the break.
But it's also like this is their true level of shooting. Like, what I mean by that is I don't think the Knicks are going to shoot as badly as they have during this run, during this bad run they've had. But I think now you look at what the numbers are that these guys have posted over the course of the season. That is indicative of OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, those two very specifically to me, of what caliber of shooter are they actually, and we know what they are. They're elite corner boys who are going to be very shaky elsewhere on 3-point shooting.
But that's the thing. On the whole, this season, like I would push back a little. Like I think last year, what we saw last year from those guys above the break was actual incapability. That is not what I don't think they're useless above the break right now. Like if you take the average, if you look at the shot charts for Mikal, for example, on the year, taking the hot stretch and now the brutal stretch, like on one side of the court above the break, he's ass. On the other side above the break, he's really good. I think that's about normal. These guys should be capable above the break, and I think that's they're not going to be Deuce level above the break. Deuce is one of the top 10 shooters in the NBA, obviously, this year, right? One of the many reasons why he should be in there for one of these fucking guys. But like this isn't, to me, I don't expect them to return to what we saw last year. To me, the more pressing issue is it's not just, it's partly a lack of shot making, but it's also like we've not been generating catch and shoots the same rate, and it's not just corners everywhere. It's one of the things that, I mean, again,
there's a lot of pump faking,
right? Like
it's a lot of pump faking.
Not even just pump faking. I mean, literally the ball. Like forget when the ball gets to them. I'm talking about guys getting into the paint and then passing the ball out. Forget what happens when the ball goes out. Like they have not been those plays where Mikal Bridges would get to the paint and then spray to the corner, or OG would do that and spray to the corner. Landry Shamet did that 3 times versus the Nets, and I thought I was watching like someone cheating. I was like, oh, I didn't know you were allowed to do that unless you're Jalen Brunson on the Knicks, like because their entire team, aside from Brunson, had basically, and except for maybe Hart, had pretty much stopped doing that for the last like month and a half. So
they've been playing selfishly. Like that's all I can say. They've been playing selfishly, and selfish play takes all kinds of forms. You want OG Anunoby to be aggressive. I also don't need OG Anunoby to think every time he gets into the paint he has to get a shot up. That doesn't need to be the case.
He had done a good balance last year and this year of like passing on his drives.
Yeah, well, I don't. Karl Anthony Towns, I think before the NBA Cup final, he was passing on something like I want to say 18% of his drives. Since that cup final, he's passing out on 9% of his drives. Like nobody expects Karl Anthony Towns to be great at passing out of drives because he never has been, right? That's just always been an issue for him. But like that's a huge drop off, 18% to 9%. And Mikal Bridges, I'll tell you this, he's very willing to pass the ball. He's super willing to pass the ball. Here's two things he's not willing to do. Apparently, touch the paint. That God forbid we touch the paint. Ooh, oh my God. I can't do that. And the other part is accepting any level of contact, which is part of why he has been passing immediately and been hesitant to call his own number. And that's unacceptable. And those three guys, OG, Cat, Mikal Bridges.
He had two drives where it was just regular ass wing drives versus the Nets where he like one-on-one just took somebody and then shot a layup. And I was just like, oh my God. It's in there somewhere in his brain. Like
and so like my thing though is like, look, I think we can talk about Brunson later and his role and kind of I think he needs to be more willing to be an asshole of a leader at times. Sometimes some situations call for an asshole. And I think the stretch the Knicks were on, it called for that. Now, maybe he did that behind closed doors, but I think you can't let it get to the point it got before somebody says something. And I think that falls on him. He's the franchise player.
Listen, some situations call for Derek Jeter. Some situations call for David Wells, man.
Yeah. And so, I think he has to own that. That's a separate thing. We can leave that to the side. Josh Hart's been out. He was out for a lot of that time. I don't think any of this is on him. And I actually, look, as somebody who was very worried about Josh Hart to start the year, I'm not worried about him at all. I think he's playing well. I think he's playing probably the most kind of in control, if you want to call it that.
He's having the best decision making of the three by far.
Yeah, and so like I have no issue with him. I have no issue with Deuce McBride. I have no issue with Landry Shamet. I have no issue with Mitchell Robinson. I think all of those guys, to varying degrees, are doing what you need them to do. The three guys: OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns. Now, I don't care which one you want to pick out. I'm not interested in singling any of them out. Those three guys collectively have been horrible. They have been a joke since the cup final, especially. Prior to that, it was great, awesome. And, even before that, Karl Anthony Towns is not off to the best start of his career or anything like that. He obviously had a lot of issues, but I was satisfied with how he was playing. I thought he was giving good effort, especially on the defensive end of the floor. I thought his decision-making was solid offensively, or at least improving. And so much of the issues were just like, oh, he's shooting worse than he ever has before. That probably won't last. I still suspect over the course of a season, his numbers will get closer to what we're accustomed to for his career. Leaving that aside, his effort and his decision-making have fallen off a cliff. There might be a lot of reasons for that. I don't think Mike Brown has helped the cause with some of the things he's been saying publicly, which are just out of control, in my opinion. I don't think the Giannis stuff that's out there, and probably, look, he's not an idiot. I'm sure that he understands, like, my contract, Giannis's contract. I see where this may be going. I'm sure that weighs on him. So that's real. And I understand that. That doesn't excuse the effort and the decision-making that we've seen from him throughout this stretch. I think Mikal Bridges, look, he plays a lot of minutes. He doesn't miss games. He had a great start to the season, but he's fallen off a cliff. I think he's got a lower free throw rate now than he did last year, which is insane. There was a game, who was it? I think when they played the Suns. They played the Suns last Saturday. That's a game without Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. Mikal Bridges played 37 minutes, I believe. He had 12 shot attempts. That's unacceptable. That's completely unacceptable to me. That's selfish. Like, it's fake unselfishness almost. Oh, well, I couldn't get the shots up. I'm just trying to be a good teammate. I'm trying to play within the flow. Yeah, no, there are sometimes I need Mr. 5 first-round picks to, deliver. And those occasions happen when Jalen Brunson is not playing, when Josh Hart is not playing. You need your big ticket players, big money players to step up. And he's passing the buck to other guys. No, Deuce McBride, you take shots. Oh, Landry Shamet, save me. Jordan Clarkson, save me. Like, no, like that's on you. You've got to do that. And he's playing with absolutely zero physicality on the defensive end of the floor. I mean, you talked about the Nets game. Landry Shamet had 2 possessions in the first half where he was trailing. I don't even remember who it was, coming off of an off-ball screen. They're trying to get into a curl action, and he stayed attached, fought through the screen, blew it up, and generated 2 turnovers, 2 steals he got. When's the last time Mikal Bridges did that? Rhetorical question. Nobody needs to answer that. I don't remember. You don't remember. Nobody remembers. That sums up how I feel about Mikal Bridges right now. He's playing with no passion, no physicality, no desire, and that is not how he was playing for the first 6 weeks of the season. I don't know. It changed. I don't really give a shit. Figure it out. OG Anunoby, I would not question his effort. I will say that much. I don't think his issue has necessarily been an effort thing. I think he is playing some really sloppy defense. I think he's trying to do too much on both ends of the floor. And I think he's
not like that.
He's trying to do hero, but he's trying to do hero ball. He's trying to do hero ball stuff. You could see it in that Suns game. He had this play where I think whatever it was, Booker got switched on to Deuce, and he's backing him down. He's not even like at the rim. He's kind of like 15, 16 feet out. And he's probably going to have to take a tough contested too. Now, obviously, Devin Booker can make that shot because that's like the shots he creates for himself, and he's good at it. But you have to live with that. You have to accept that. And guess what? Deuce McBride's a really good defender, so you should accept that. For some reason, OG Anunoby just completely leaves his man on the opposite side of the floor, cheats over, but he doesn't even get close to Booker, so he doesn't even actually impact the play. He doesn't put pressure on him, and Booker's able to make an easy swing to guess who? The guy that OG Anunoby left wide open on the wing. Now they missed the 3, but the Knicks were in scramble mode, and the Suns were able to get an offensive rebound, and then they kicked it out to Royce O'Neal, who did hit a 3. The point being is like that play to me is indicative of he's just, like you said, he's sloppy, he's not locked in, but it's also that he is trying to do way too much. And you see that on the offensive end of the floor. I mean, he took a step back 3 against the Mavs at a point. I think the Knicks were down. They'd cut the lead, which is disgusting to say. They'd cut the lead to 20. And his decision in that point in time was to take this step back 3 in the corner. Like a step back 3 in the corner for OG Anunoby. First of all, most people shouldn't ever take step backs in the corner. That's like the area of the floor where it kind of makes no sense to do that. But if you're going to do it, you better not be named OG Anunoby. And he is. And he took it. And he front rimmed it. And it was terrible. And the reason why it is especially terrible is because what the hell is he shooting from 3 over the last 11, 12 games? Do you know? I don't know. But I would imagine it's like fucking 5%, 6%. I don't know. Some bullshit number. He's shooting terribly. So why are you taking the most difficult version of the shot you're currently struggling with? I don't know. But those 3 guys are not delivering. They are not delivering in any sense of the word. And if the Nets game was a step in the right direction, that's great. But whatever the Knicks hope to achieve this season, it's not possible if those guys are not going to be part of the solution. And, again, we can talk about like, I think there is like a collective malaise, a collective, they've kind of lost their way a little bit with the offense. And I think there's a lack of trust at times with, Brunson maybe to get off the ball or whatever, executing certain actions, cutting with purpose, screening with purpose. Those are collective issues, right? We can talk about that. We can talk about some of the schematic stuff that they're struggling with defensively, where it feels like every time anybody touches the paint, there's 3 guys collapsing on him, which is ridiculous and leads to countless wide open shooters. And on top of, giving up easy kickouts, their second, their third, their fourth rotations, their help rotations off of those driving kicks are not there. We can talk about that, but that collective stuff, it's not going to fucking matter if these 3 individual players who you have invested a lot of draft equity and a lot of fucking money in are not playing up to that price tag. That's it. Like nothing. We can talk about the starting lineup, Josh Hart. We tweak this. Don't play that. Those three guys play like shit. It does not matter if I'm coaching, if you're coaching, if fucking Jesus Christ is coaching. It doesn't matter, what scheme you're running. You can run the fucking Princeton offense. You could run fucking 35 ISOs a game. You could run, the 2014 Spurs, beautiful. It doesn't matter. If those guys are playing like absolute dog shit and they're playing selfishly and they're not playing for each other or not playing for the team, it doesn't matter. And, again, Karl Anthony Towns has gotten a brunt of the blame, and I don't really give a shit. That's fine. Like, he's getting paid, a bajillion dollars. He's the guy out of that group who obviously is kind of like the highest, the most marquee player. He's a guy who potentially could make the Hall of Fame one day. It's fine if he takes the majority of the bullets. It's fine if Mikal Bridges takes a ton of bullets, right? Mr. 5 first-round picks. I get it. But the point is, all three of those guys, to me, are equally culpable in what has been the worst stretch of Knicks basketball since David Fizdale. And, I don't care to parse the difference, is probably the way I put it. And I think it's a disservice to the team and any analysis of it to kind of like pick and choose which one deserves the most blame. No, fuck that. It's all three of those guys together equally, as far as I'm concerned. They have been dog shit, and you're not going anywhere if those three guys are dog shit. It's not possible. It does not matter who the coach is. And look, I mean, this. I've been very critical of Mike Brown for some of I don't understand the Clarkson stuff, which thank God it seems like he's moving off of that. And I have not enjoyed his bizarre, weird calling out of Cat and praising Draymond, defending Draymond, and all these type of weird things. I don't really understand what that was about. Now he might have gotten the memo after the Nets game because he went out of his way to all of a sudden start defending Cat. So maybe somebody talked to him, but leave aside Mike Brown. Those three guys are playing in a way that it doesn't matter who the coach is. And I don't think it's about if they played that way for Tom Thibodeau, there's nothing Tom Thibodeau could have done. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who the coach would be. If those three guys are going to play the way they were playing, it is what it is. Now, does he deserve some blame for that? Sure. But you know what? When you get paid the money these guys are getting paid, if the organization has invested it as much as these guys have been invested in, there is a level of individual responsibility that comes into it that, hey man, maybe you don't like the coach. Maybe you're struggling with the scheme. But there's some non-negotiable shit that is non-negotiable, right? That's why they're called non-negotiables. These are just things you have to deliver on a game-to-game basis. Playing for your team, playing hard, playing with effort, playing with any level of physicality, playing together, putting the team above your own bullshit. These are non-negotiables. And those three right now, they failed across the board to that stretch. Again, hopefully this Nets game is a turnaround point for them. We will see. But it has to start now.
Yeah, I agree. Those are the three where you said they're playing selfishly. I agree. I think what you're seeing from those three is we see a version of this. Anybody who hoops for fun.
I just got to say, I won't, but Prez will.
I'll speak for everybody on earth except for Shwin. Anybody who hoops except for Shwin, who only hoops in a style recognizable to Steve Nash and other savants of the beautiful game, obviously. No, what I'm saying is they're during these times of adversity, they do what they perceive as an easy thing for their skill set, for what they know. For OG, that's man, this shit ain't working for me on offense. I'm sure he's not an idiot. He knows that he's shooting like garbage, and he's probably I'm gonna try to make up for some of this by going for home run swings on defense, right? You talked about the hero ball defense. Just because you're capable of it doesn't mean it's smart.
There's a time and place.
It's the NBA version of a guy who smokes a layup in a pickup game and then runs back full speed and immediately like assault and batteries somebody on the other end to try to make up for bricking a layup or something like that. For McCall, what it is on offense is he's going to avoid contact and go to his mid-range jumper. He's going to take a hard jumper. He's going to try to get his hard jumper going. That's the security blanket rather than driving and kicking or taking a layup. Two things that he's shown he can do, but not consistently. And when the team's going good, he does those two things. And when the team's playing poorly, he does not. On defense, the thing that is easy and comfortable from Bridges is okay. So like I'm really good at like we talked early in the season about his getting blocks from behind when he's behind on the play and his getting steals from behind and shit like that. That's what he defaults to now way too much. Instead of trying to square somebody up in front of them, instead of trying to play defense with his chest, get his chest into the defender, which is something Mike Brown called this out, not for Bridges, but for the whole team. And it's right, but it's for Bridges.
It wasn't just Cat. It wasn't just a Cat thing.
I know, right? Bridges is definitely Bridges and Brunson are the worst offenders about this. Where they're comfortable backing up or comfortable chasing rather than just being like, no, go through me, dude. And McCall will just be like, all right, with the contact averse thing is to just like go around the pick and not hit the guy with my chest and not hit the pick and then try to whatever after that. For Towns on offense, the easy thing is I'm going to try to drive because I'm bigger and faster than most guys. And I'm going to,
and I don't have confidence in my 3-point shot right now.
And I don't have confidence in my 3-point shot right now. So I'm going to drive. And then when that doesn't work as well as I think, I'm going to use my offhand. I'm going to hook up. I'm going to hook up or I'm going to flail. He had two versus the Mavericks. He had a play where I think it was Clay was near him, didn't even touch him. And he literally just like there was a scrum for the rebound and Cat just threw his head back to try to draw a foul. Like there was no contact. The Cat just threw his head back and then he literally bobbled the ball out of bounds. And then versus the Nets, he had 3 upward arm off grabs where he tries to hook the person's. It's not the chicken wing hook that him and Carmelo do. It's a different hook where you go up. That is really popular right now, and it's absolutely astonishing how often he is just defaulting to floppy bullshit instead of doing the hard thing, which is like I'm gonna maybe slow down by like 1 mile per hour when I drive, not even to pass, but just to like do something else. Or instead of worrying about that, I'm gonna go try to seal somebody off ball, which he did a couple of times in the Nets game. That was excellent. Finally realizing there's other ways he can it's not just drive, pick and pop, post up. There's other ways you can get involved in the offense if you're Towns. And that's the kind of stuff that it sounds paradoxical, but that's the other kind of off-ball stuff Towns can do in this offense that he traditionally doesn't do unless there's plays designed for that, where like in the movement off ball, if Towns ends up with a smaller guy on him, you don't have to just call for the ball at the 3-point line. You can actually walk them down off ball into the paint and do that. So like those are the type of things that these guys are struggling with, and they just default to their most bitch-made tendencies, all 3 of them. And it's really fucking annoying because all of them are way too talented individually to do this bullshit. Like they're just all 3 of them. Like, yeah, if somebody else wants to like, have a favorite punching bag, you hate Cat the most, you hate Bridges the most because we gave up 5 picks, you hate OG the most because he's British. I don't know. whatever your reason is, fine. I'm kind of with you where it's just like all three of them are just so fucking annoying. For me personally, Cat is a little bit more annoying just because it's like
Is it
I'm
because
like,
he's
bro, like
Dominican and you're Puerto Rican?
no, if anything, it would give me pleasure to see him fail in that situation. Unfortunately, he's in the Knicks. He's on the Knicks, so those desires conflict, and I'm struggling with that. But no, like it's just because I mean, the salary is one thing, but even more than that, it's the whole thing where like he just has such great ability, and he had a play versus the Nets. One of the seals he had, and I think he got the ball and he threw a jump hook. And I'm like, dog, I actually don't remember the last time he shot a jump hook. And I don't like him in the post. I like throw me the ball in the post while everybody else is standing. I don't actually like that. I like him getting into the post quickly versus mismatches, shit like that. Not just like he's not fucking Hakeem, but like his touch, even though has been terrible this year, like that is one of the hallmarks of his game. And I'm just like, he needs to recognize that it's not just catch and shoot, drive left, and post up. Like you have more options in the offense. And Strickland contributor, friend of the pod, Shax tweets about organized offense and play called offense versus freelancing all the time. And versus the Nets, it was an extreme case. But like the freelancing was still bad, right? Like it wasn't particularly great. Part of that was the lineups, like the starting lineup, where it's like, okay, is it my turn? Is it his turn? Who's cutting? Blah blah blah. But part of that is just like Cat is still struggling. All these guys are still struggling with like, you know, playing for the team versus just doing the thing that they're comfortable doing instead of
It's
rising
like
to the
they're
challenge.
trying to find themselves, but like
Yes.
while they're trying to find themselves individually, they're completely sabotaging like the
Yes.
team when they're on the floor.
That's why I gave the
And
example
yeah,
of the guy in pickup who's like smokes a terrible layup and it's like, I have to make up for it. I'm gonna sprint down, and then like some accountant is now headed to the hospital because of a pickup flagrant foul or something like that. Like it's like you just gotta like realize how to play, remember how to play within the flow of the team, and
yeah.
part of it is a little bit less is more. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about that this connects to that you mentioned um is some of this is on the coach, right? And we can debate how much is them tuning out the coach, right? Because I promise you Mike Brown is telling them, hey dudes, get to the fucking paint because your teammates will be open for sprays. You don't always have to do some bullshit in the paint once you get there. You don't have to do a fadeaway if you're Bridges or a collapsing pump fake layup if you're OG, or falling over lefty floater if you're Towns. But you mentioned Jalen Brunson and his role as a leader here, and I think hopefully my hope is that this game actually is the turning point. That meeting, corny as it was, is the turning point because you mentioned Jalen Brunson is not really an asshole type of leader, right? Traditionally, that's 100%
Not that
true.
we yeah,
He, not that
not
we
not
know.
openly anyway.
Yeah, or at least not. I suspect that he'll have moments of that. He's a good leader. Like I think in the NBA players poll, he was actually by the Athletic. He was actually voted number 1 or number 2, like best leader in the
Do you
NBA or something
think
like that.
do you think that Jalen Brunson's a better leader than me, or would you say that's like kind of hard for him to hit that benchmark?
It's like neck and neck. It's like 1A, 1B. It depends how much whiskey Shwin has had as to whether his leadership is shining through. But no, like
Scotch, not
it
whiskey.
becomes harder. I promise you it becomes harder for Brunson in his style of leadership, which is it's very much like I would suspect it's a little bit more rally the troops kind of leader than it is, like get it fucking together, bozo. Like he's not gonna be like it becomes a lot harder to rally the troops when you yourself are dicking around for half the game on half the court.
And
And
and let's put the cards on the table. Since the cup final,
just
Brunson's
he was
defense
dicking around.
it was terrible. Like I think he understood it was terrible, and when they played the Clippers in New York, that was the first game in a long time where I was like, "Oh, he's playing like actual defense."
Mhm.
Now, like I think when he's played since then, his defense has actually been like he's kind of maintained that level. Against the Mavericks, he tried to do a lot of weird like hero bally type stuff on defense, but at least in that, like I give him a pass on that because I'm like, okay, with you, I just need you to like try. Like that's what I need from
Yes.
you on defense. Try. Like
Try
I
and
expect
just
you.
do like the minimum, like know where to. Again, like I'll give you an example. Versus Dallas, there were plays where um transition in half court where um he was like close to his assignment, but like sort of drifting off. It wasn't complete lack of awareness, but it was enough that he basically, like, the difference between him being completely completely lacking awareness of his man, and just like sort of like a little bit too far off. The difference is actually irrelevant practically because he's so short that if he's not very aware of his man, he's not going to affect them on defense when he's trying to find Max Christie or trying to find Caleb Martin or
Right.
whoever. So like nobody, I don't think anybody on the Knicks expects him to be fucking Gary Payton, right? Like they just need you to, like, if your job is to just stick the guy whose main job is to just fucking shoot, and we know you're not going to help that much in the paint, right?
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson's extra arm in the paint is not going to do shit.
There
Like,
there are two
I'm
things. There are literally two things Brunson needs to do. That and these are the only two things I care about. Stay on your man. I like don't need you to do any crazy help defense shit. And then box out. That's it. Those are the only two things I ever care about him doing on defense. I don't need a single other thing. I don't need
the
him
only
doing anything.
I'll add one thing. I'll add one thing because I'm feeling greedy today. Is like the one thing you are, short as you are,
Strong.
is you're fucking strong. So like just as soon as somebody gets the ball, like just hit them. Just hit him. Like it's something that we've seen all the time. Like he struggles to stay in front of guys. So the least you can do is like
Steph
inflict
does
a
it.
little bit of pain. Yeah, it's basic perimeter defenses. You want to make, and Mike Brown has talked about this shit all the time. Like you want them to feel you. You want to, he uses different phrases, but like it's like you, like basically you want some chest to chest contact. That way you're not immediately conceding anything, regardless of whether you're some really good point of attack defender or you're less gifted. You make them feel that, and then if you get beat afterwards, you got to trust your team. Okay, that's fine. If you get crossed up, okay. If you're Brunson, like, guess what? Brunson's gonna get crossed up sometimes. Like, if you're Mikal Bridges and you get crossed up every fucking other play, that's different. That's not acceptable. But like, if you're Brunson, like, just do that. And they did, again, the Nets stink, right? Like they're in for a hell of a challenge versus the Sixers because as even before this season, even with Tibbs, we've known that the Knicks have struggled with speed quite a lot for some time. It's really good that Landry Shamet is back, as insane as that is to say, because it gives us two guys who at least are somewhat okay with speed. Landry's issues on defense are not really that. It's more just like sometimes strong guys will just move him a little bit or shoot over him, especially if he's assigned wings and stuff like that. But like on guys like VJ and Maxi, like they're going to not give you time. So you have to know what you're gonna do. You have to be able to make contact with them. And if you can't make contact with them, you have to know where you're helping right after that, because somebody else is gonna abandon their man to help you. You have to know who you're boxing out. Versus
Should
Dallas,
just I think we should just leave Grimes open because he's not good at basketball.
honestly, it's not the worst strategy in the world.
By the way,
I've
Quentin
done him for
Grimes
my fantasy team after
is
having him for
shooting
like 2 months.
he's shooting 35.5% from three. The great Quentin Grimes, who we committed malpractice of trading. Fuck him.
He probably realized that his 8th trade request was not going to be fulfilled. So
Do you think?
now
I
it's
guess
just,
like that's the real
perpetually
question.
sad.
Is the real question is will Quentin Grimes ask for a trade at the trade deadline? You know, that's what we
I
need to
bet you
know.
he's already. I bet you he's already asked for a trade.
Yeah. Why am I not starting over VJ Edgecombe? Sorry, buddy.
Why can't we
Got
go
some
to
news for
three-guard
you.
lineup? Yeah, bro.
No, I agree with you. I think Philly's a tough challenge, not just because of the guards, but Embiid is now playing well. He's gotten back to like his best. So you've got a lot of challenges here. And like honestly, it's a good thing because beating the Nets is like like we said, it's the bare minimum type of thing. It's like, okay, congrats. Like you beat little brother. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do.
You
And
beat the shit.
sure.
Little brother's in the hospital, actually.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes,
I mean,
you're right.
yeah, it's actually an episode on the Pit. But yeah, like that's fine. That it was impressive, I guess, but it's also kind of like it's impressive in a way that is kind of like means nothing, right? It doesn't actually mean anything towards
It means that
did you fix the things? Did you fix the things
Right.
that have been actually ailing you? And you didn't face any adversity in that game, right? You didn't
face
face
any
a
adversity
single
at
bit
all.
of
Yeah.
adversity in that game. And the thing that I think has been most disconcerting to me through this stretch they had, this 2-9 stretch they had, is go back to they played Miami, I think, like a week after the NBA Cup. And it was like they won 132-125. Brunson had a crazy game. And after the game, Spoelstra dropped a quote. And his quote was like, he was praising the Knicks. He was praising their mentality. He was like, these guys, like, if you kill them, they don't die. Like they're gonna come back and they're just gonna keep going and they keep going. And he talked about this belief they have and all this type of shit, right? All the shit that you're like, damn, Frederick Spoelstra's saying that shit about my team. It must be true. And
typical Eric Spoelstra
yeah.
reverse psychology.
No, but then you kind of felt that too because you saw it in games, right? Even when the Knicks were not playing that great immediately after the Cup final, but they were still able to pull out games, right? That Indiana game they had literally right after the Cup. They had the Cavs game on Christmas Day. They had the Pelicans game right after the Cavs game. They had them and the Hawks. They beat the Hawks and the Pelicans in games that were probably too close for like comfort, especially given the talent advantage you have. But sometimes, you go through stretches like that. We understand that. And you're still pulling out these games and you're still fighting, right? More than anything, you were still fighting. You still felt like this group is fighting. They're trying, they're competing. So even if they had lost those games, you wouldn't have come out of it being like, where was the effort? Where was the fight? Why did they make no comeback? Why weren't they able to get back into the game after falling behind? And I don't know what the hell happened at halftime of that Spurs game, but really since that point in time, their competitive level individually and collectively had fallen off a cliff. And that, you got like this random game against Portland where they showed it, but really aside from that, and the Clippers game at home, but really aside from that, it was just kind of like, where is any of that? Like, because that is the thing that you never really doubted for years with this team, really. Like, I never really doubted, like, will this team, are they going to win? Maybe not, but like, they're going to fucking try and they're going to give it what they have. And, Tibbs deserves a lot of credit for that too, because I think that's a hallmark of how he coaches. And I think he instills that in his teams. But like these guys as individual players have that, right? Jalen Brunson has that quality. I think Josh Hart has that quality, whatever. You can go down the list. But to see like the way they were just falling apart and not even trying to put it back together in games, coming out flat is one thing, but you come out flat in the first quarter. Okay. You come out flat to close the second quarter. You come out flat in the third quarter. It was just kind of like they would routinely not like even
everything was
until the fourth quarter.
Everything was wearing on all of them, and you could see them just like resigned in many respects, and like it's all the little things adding up, right? It's like when Cat does one of his stupid ass fouls, they're fucking rolling their eyes in their head. When Mikal Bridges has like some fucking shrimp on him and he's like just fading away. Like they're rolling there. When Mikal Bridges gets crossed over by Najee Marshall for the 10th time, like it's everybody like you all notice this shit. And it's just like what you want to see is, even if things aren't going your way, is there's fight and there's some level of belief in the game plan. That's the thing. It's like, okay, even if someone crosses me up and gets by me, like my team has my back. I'm gonna be ready to do the next part of the game plan, which is help the helper, right? If I'm Mikal, I'm gonna be ready to either impact the ball handler or go help someone else in case they pass out, whatever. Like you just have to trust the game plan, trust
You just trust your teammates. But
your
it's like
teammates.
that trust has been it was broken during this time, and it's again, it's like that's where it becomes it's kind of like a feedback loop where you're like, well, I'm not going to get help, so and because you feel that way, then you don't help somebody, and it's like, it just kind of like cycles back and forth where it's like, oh, Cat's
I'll
gonna
give you
do something
another.
stupid.
I'll give you another example. Versus Dallas, there were several plays where guys like ranging from Brunson to OG were in transition, and you could see them looking for their man in transition and going to their man, but the nearest, there was a wide open threat close to them who was not their assignment. So in their heads, it's fuck, we're bleeding in transition. I gotta make sure I stick my guy. Somebody else will worry about Caleb Martin because that's Caleb Martin's defender, whoever that is, right? Instead of being like, I trust that if I get Jalen Brunson's guy, someone else is gonna get my guy. Da 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 da. So like, you're right. It's a lack of trust in each other and a resignation that like by doing me, I will not be the cause of the issues. And that's how you end up with a situation where the whole team is basically like, it's not just me, right? It's not just me. And then that's why it makes it such a frustrating situation for fans and probably for the players, is like, this isn't attributable to just one or two things or one player being like dog shit. It's everybody. And that's how you get out of it. And the silver lining is, because it's not one player, and because it's really like, it's a lot of, it has turned into an avalanche, but it's really a lot of small things that should be fixable. Like there are certain things that are going to be harder to fix, obviously, right? Like Cat is going to commit dumb offensive fouls. Mikal's going to take good but not advisable fadeaways and mid-range shots, shit like that. But like the little things, like 2 feet in the paint, spraying out, cross matching in transition when you have to, things like that. Like those are fixable. Those are largely effort and awareness, not just effort, right? Like I want to be clear about that. It's not just effort. It's also, you got to be smart. But generally speaking, that's how this team operated to start the year, and that's how most of these players have spent most of their careers, is as guys who give effort and are pretty smart about it. So I'm cautiously optimistic in the Brooklyn game that like the game plan is easier versus Brooklyn because they suck. They executed the game plan on defense. Versus Philly, the game plan is much harder because they're not Brooklyn. But the fact that like they were able to like not attempt to just do me and then I'm not going to worry about everybody else. Like that's really all you need. And versus Brooklyn, it's going to be a big test. They got to do it. Brunson has to be the one who keeps them locked in, to be honest, because Mike Brown, the kind of coach he is, like, I mean, this is honestly the thing that like most coaches are not. When you have vets on max contracts, like this isn't college. You're not gonna fucking bully these guys into doing the thing. I know like lots of people on the internet believe that like all the great NBA coaches are leaders of men who inspire them to lie on the hand grenade and can shame them into action when it's needed. But if you look at like the best coaches in the NBA right now, none of them are fucking like that, right? Like Spoelstra's not the kind of guy. Like he'll yell at his guys, but I promise you, Spoelstra is not yelling at Bam Adebayo. He's yelling at undrafted fucking random spot up shooter X number 34 who the Heat pull out of their ass every year, right? Like it's the same with I mean, this guy in Boston is his own kind of breed, but he's like his own separate category. So I'm not even going to talk about him, but like he's not the kind of guy who's going to try to ream a player out. What you need to do is have synergy between the leaders on the team and the coach, which is really Brunson and the coach. Cat's not that guy. Cat's immensely talented. I do think I will say this about Cat's leadership is when he's doing those little things, it's so impactful on the court that I do think it's very contagious. And it's not the kind of little things that, I don't mean diving on the ball or even boxing out. It's more just like being in the right place on defense and, not falling over as much on offense. Deciding I'm going to seal a guy and then dunk on somebody, right? Because Cat's the biggest athlete on the team outside of Mitch, right? Like these little things, when you can see when Cat does that, the team gets energy, right? So that's how Cat leads the team, is really like when he plays like his best self, I don't think anybody on the team provides as much energy as Cat in like a contagious fashion. So like they all have their different elements of leadership to play. And they just kind of have to just continue doing it, right? Like there was part of me that was watching them early on in the Nets game, and I was like, the expression that I saw on their faces was like a sense of graveness, but there wasn't really joy until they got up a bit. So like the ultimate form of this is when they're comfortable and happy, right? Like, because that's who this team really is. And what's challenging about turning this ship around is Brunson right now is very much on the track of like, yeah, it's great that we beat the Nets. Doesn't matter. It's fucking one game. Like, that's what he's saying publicly. That's probably what he's telling everybody. So, like, you got to be serious enough to do what you got to do, but also remember that, like, you guys are fucking good. And when you start kicking ass, it's fun. And you did see them discover that a little bit versus the Nets. And again, the Nets suck, but that was another thing I wanted to mention because, like, these guys are good. And I think Josh Hart and Deuce are probably the only people who constantly, like, remember that, like, doing your job, doing it well is fun. Like, everybody else, it's, like, a little bit of a labor of pain sometimes. And I'm just like, guys, just fucking relax. Like,
yeah. The Knicks now, they have actually dropped. It's the third in the Eastern Conference in terms of odds to come out of the East. So Detroit is now number one, plus 320. This is on FanDuel. Boston is at plus 330, and the Knicks are third at plus 390. Those three teams are basically saying it's like a three-way kind of coin flip, but that's a stark departure from where the Knicks were for much of the season, where they were the heavy favorite to come out of the East. To talk about, you talked about joy. I think not playing with joy it's been something that I think you've seen it with Cat through a lot of the season, even early on. I think you could feel it, you could see it. It picked up. I think he got into a better place leading into and up to the Cup final. But even after that, it just felt like something, I don't know, like he's struggling to kind of adapt to the offense or figure out what he's supposed to do and get comfortable. And that, is creating issues. And he, I think he was kind of feeling that pressure, which leads to a lack of joy. But what else doesn't help your joy? It doesn't help if you feel like your coach doesn't have your back. And, we can, the individual stuff, I still think, Cat has to be a better Like, he's just got to be better regardless. But Mike Brown has to own some of this too. Like, he's not helped the cause. There's been this complete lack of like, it feels like enthusiasm on the bench since the cup. I genuinely don't really know what's been going on with him. He's been calling Cat out constantly. He doesn't want to like challenge plays half the time. He's complimenting refs instead of fighting for his players. I think all of that energy has been weird, and that energy, that is part of I think what seeped into the team, where it's kind of like that lack of fight, that lack of like, it's all part of it. And you know, Mike Brown wants to win because every fucking coach wants to win. And I understand that he's been trying to do this thing of like, well, we got to stop complaining to the refs and we got to control what we can control and blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. I think that's a good thing to advocate for. But you still got to fight for your team, and you still got to fight for calls, and you still got to and when you think you're getting a shitty whistle, if you want your players to kind of like play through it and not complain, fine. Then you have to, right? Like, you have to be the voice for them at that point. And when you're not doing that, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And, I'm sure, like, say whatever you want about Karl Anthony Towns, but I don't feel that his issues in his career have ever been about like, he doesn't, he mails it in if, for under various coaches or whatever. That's bullshit. Like, that's not really the case. Him and Tom Thibodeau had issues in Minnesota, which are well documented. He came here last year, and like, again, say whatever you want about Cat last season. It'd be bizarre to say that like he doesn't like Tibbs, so he mailed it in last year. Like, no, absolutely not. Cat played hard. He played a lot of fucking minutes. He played, as much. He had as good of a first season really in New York as you could have reasonably expected. So, I don't think this is like a coach killer type dude, which to me, like, yeah, like I look at whatever's going on with that relationship between him and Mike Brown and how it's gone sideways. Again, Cat has to own what he's doing on the floor at an individual level for sure, and he's got to be better. But for that relationship to have gotten to a sour of a place, at least as it seems to us looking, from the outside in, that is on Mike Brown. And like, I don't know how you mend that. Um, again, like the suggestions of like, well, just trade Cat and whatever, and like, whatever. Those are fine discussions and people can have them. I don't think they're realistic, not this season anyway. And I also think like one thing we know about, I don't think Karl Anthony Towns is a guy who like holds grudges forever. Like, if he has beef with you, fine, you have beef. But I also think that like, if you're open to settling it, he's not, you know what I mean? He's not gonna like hold on to that grudge forever and be like, no, fuck that. Like, this is over. Like, no, I think he's open to squashing stuff. Again, we saw that with Tom Thibodeau last year. Um, and so if I'm the front office and all the signaling they've put out has been like, nope, like, we like this team, we like this group, we're not planning on making big changes. We want to see what they can do. We still believe in them. Okay, well, if you believe in them, then like, guess what? Like, you hired Mike Brown, you traded for Karl Anthony Towns. It becomes incumbent upon you as Leon Rose, as Roll Wide West, those two guys very specifically, to get those two guys in a fucking room and have them hash it out, because you cannot have this lingering over your season. And I mean, you can't even call it lingering. It's seeping into your season. It is affecting your season. There's no two ways about it. Like, Karl Anthony Towns is maybe not playing, not maybe, he's not playing as well or as hard or as smart as he should. And part of that is down to, I think, his feeling like Mike Brown probably doesn't have his back. And that is, we talked about it earlier, how like, oh, like if Karl Anthony Towns is doing stupid shit, then, a guy like OG Anunoby, maybe he allows that to affect his effort. And then that affects Mikal Bridges' effort and so on and so forth. And, should that be the case? No, but that is the case. And so you need to find a way to address that. And I don't care how it happens. I don't care what it requires. I don't care who has to kind of like bend the knee a little bit or whatever it is. You got to hash it out. They can't have this like, and I think it's a disservice to themselves to not do it because I'm sorry, they went 23-9 to start the year. They were playing obviously different to me than they played under Tom Thibodeau. It's not even a knock on the way they played under Tom Thibodeau. It's just they were buying in. They were executing to the vision of what they were trying to achieve before it all went off the rails. But I don't think that 23-9 start was just smoke and mirrors. I don't think that was bullshit. I don't think that was a misrepresentation of the actual talent level of his team. They have the talent to compete. They have the talent to contend. Is the 1 seed gone? Sure. Who cares? I don't care. The seeding to me was never a big deal. It's the NBA. You can win if you have the talent. You can win on the home. You can win on the road. It's not a big deal to me. And it's a disservice to themselves if they don't at least put in the effort and put their best foot forward. And that starts, and that's with everybody. I don't think Mike Brown could look at himself in the mirror and then genuinely be like, yeah, no, I've coached this perfectly so far. Like, no, absolutely not. Like this last month has been terrible from him. On a rotation management perspective, but most importantly from like getting buy-in and keeping your guys in the fight and fighting for you and fighting to execute what you want from them schematically, but also just fighting, like giving effort. And so he has to own that. And he's got to turn it around. And I think part of turning that around is really like him and Karl-Anthony Towns figuring out what's going on here. Like, what is our relationship? How do we get this back to a good place? Because it wasn't a good place. We know Karl-Anthony Towns was struggling to adapt at times, but it was definitely in a better place than it is right now. And getting that back to a place where it's like you guys are both on the same page is critical to whatever they end up doing this season. I want to get to this real quick. Nick State brought this up. This is Luca. Since none of the 3 wings have played well together this year, is it more important to separate those guys or separate Jalen and Cat, who everyone says tanks our defense as a court-sharing pair?
It's more important to separate those guys. I firmly believe that the defense can struggle with Brunson and Cat, but the offense is supposed to be really good with those 2 guys. They're our 2 best offensive players. Their 2-man game, even if it's not always pretty, it's pretty impactful. We have a lot of data on that. The wings, I think it shouldn't be hard to separate those guys. We talked about it at the top about needing to have some more Deuce and 2 of the 3, whether it's McCall out, Hart out, whoever, OG out. I think we saw last year. This actually ties into something we haven't talked about. You mentioned it briefly, but the end of the Clarkson experiment, right? And we saw last year in the playoffs, especially, that like these units of like capable guards, either who can shoot or play defense, and Cat as bench units, along with one of the wings, usually OG or Hart. Those lineups ate in the playoffs and have been pretty solid in the regular season. They were good last year with Campaign. They're good this year when it's not Jordan Clarkson. So one easy way to separate them is, again, regardless of if the starting lineup even stays the same, okay, fine, whatever. Like you let Cat and one of those wings eat with Deuce and Shamit on the bench. And that lineup is going to kill every single time. With bench units. So even with Kolek, whatever, as long as it's just not Clarkson. So we have a way to let you give one of, yes, I'm sure some of the wings would be like, oh, the fuck, why am I going out? But like then they get to eat with a bench unit, which is a proven thing. And it's a way to get wings some more touches and to have lineups that don't bleed. So whether it's in the starting lineup separating them and adding in Deuce, or in these bench lineups, it pays a lot of dividends. And I think when you separate them, the defense can also get better because you get more Deuce or more Mitch with Cat and Brunson as well. So that's my take. I do think you should also separate, Brunson and Cat, but not because of how anything regarding with how they play together. It's more just because you need to rest Brunson at some point, and your best bet for bench units is Cat plus capable players around and supporting Cat. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think, separating them is kind of like how you get more out of Jalen and Cat. And also, like, look, I think one thing that was good about this Nets game, and maybe it was easy because they were getting blown out, is one of Brunson or Cat was on the floor at all times. I really think the biggest thing that they've lost from last season to this season, we know that we already talked about the starting lineup being a problem. What kind of like saved them last year in some ways is Cat plus bench was like a killer lineup for them. Awesome lineup. Like you can look at it throughout the year.
Campaign was great. Campaign was great.
And, okay.
The difference between Campaign as a bench guard.
Let's relax with the Campaign was great. Campaign was not great.
If two people are defending Campaign and everybody else on earth is dead, then the people alive are Karl Anthony Towns and Prez. Okay, let it be known. For a random
Campaign was fine.
Clarkson is so bad compared to Campaign.
That's your guy.
That is my guy. It hurts my soul, bro. You think I'm getting pleasure saying this? Absolutely not. I feel like I'm. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm telling my friends some very bad news, but like, he's so bad that like Tyler Kolek has been dog shit for a month, but the level of dog shit is just so far. It's still so much better than Clarkson that like, oh my god! Like, if we just eliminating Clarkson is going to reap massive dividends.
I actually did want to get to this because.
And then
we know that the Knicks are. We know
going to do that.
We know the Knicks are interested in, or at least it's been reported that they're interested in Jose Alvarado. And I think there's been a lot of discussion of like, well, that's just a margin move. Is that really moving the needle? And what I will say is, to the point you're making, Clarkson has been so bad, and Kolek, who I look at, he's played what?
I still think he's been solid this year.
Yeah,
right.
He's played like 600 minutes in his career in the NBA. So like there's still an element of like he's figuring out the game and teams have more film on him and blah blah blah. But like if you just eliminate Clarkson and you add a player like Alvarado, who is, I want to be very clear about this, Jose Alvarado is not the best player in the world. He is not a star. He is not a starter, really. But what he is an effective bench guard. He's an effective bench guard who can defend, who can do the basics offensively. He can run an offense.
He can shoot.
At a basic level. And I think taking out a player like Clarkson, who is actively destructive right now on both ends of the floor, because he can't create off the bounce at all. He doesn't create good offense off the bounce anymore anyway. His 3-point shooting is extremely shaky. His decision-making offensively is shaky because it's always been shaky. And defensively, he has been, a tire fire. Just absolute crazy stuff that he's doing, both in terms of like it's not even an effort thing with him, which is like the funniest part about it. He's just bad. He doesn't know like his rotations. He overhelps. He gets too aggressive on the ball and commits stupid fouls. Like it's just reality. And I just think that getting him out and putting in a player like Alvarado, and like, look, there might be concerns about like, oh, is that it? How do you play that many small guys together and blah, blah, blah. Like, I think those are fair concerns. I also think we're underestimating how bad Clarkson has been and how much getting in just like a competent, good player like Alvarado immediately gives you a bump. And I don't think that means Kolek, one, needs to or should be traded. I don't think it means that he has no future, but you're trying to win a championship right now. So if you have reservations about, can Tyler Kolek do it right now? Are we sure about that? Like, no, you should have those reservations. And you should operate with that in mind and bring in a player like Alvarado or bringing in a player like Ayo Dosunmu and basically eliminating your Jordan Clarkson minutes entirely. I do think people are sleeping on how much of a bump that would give this team. I really do. I think that is like a major, major bump for them, and one that is genuinely not insignificant.
It's not. It's not. And it's one of those things where like different levels of badness all kind of blend together in people's head. It happens to everybody, but like Clarkson's bad by eye test and even worse by measurables at this point. Like there's like levels to badness, and like if you look at the worst players getting minutes on the best teams, most of them are gonna have someone who's like, why is this guy playing? Right? Like Detroit, the Jaden Ivey minutes are not good. Ron Holland minutes are weird. Like it's gonna happen, but usually the best teams in the NBA don't have 20 minutes a game dedicated to a tire fire guy. And usually that tire fire guy, if they are on the roster, are playing more of a role player role and less of a featured role. And Clarkson, because we don't have ball handlers and because this is just Jordan Clarkson, is even as a secondary creator, he's going to have a level of featuredness, right? Like when he gets the ball, like that thing going up.
His entire value is about what he does with the ball.
Yeah, and even when he's off ball, that's the thing. Like even when he's off ball, like as soon as he gets the ball, like it's Jordan Clarkson time. More so than even in other points in his career. So Prez is obsessed with players with the bag. Look, just because I appreciate the art form doesn't mean I want them on my team. That's the thing. Okay. Sometimes someone you love, you have to let them go in order to have the best in everybody's life. And that's what I feel like about Jordan Clarkson. It wasn't meant to be.
It also doesn't mean that he needs to like never play again. He's playing bad right now, like really bad right now. That's just a fact. I don't know what else to say. He's playing so bad. And what we've seen with Mike Brown is just because he like takes you out of the rotation doesn't mean that that's a forever thing. Like we've seen that. So, I just think that it's one, if you're the front office, you got to look at the Clarkson then and be like, good idea, not good results. And that should inform what you do at the trade deadline. Because at the end of the day, even look, let's assume the Knicks get back to the level they were at to start the year. Let's say that's their true level and they get back to it. And, we're a 50-win team. We go into the playoffs, whatever. We have the realistic expectation and hope to contend, right? Let's just roll with that. Even in that scenario, I think most people would have looked at this team. I would have anyway. I think you would have also, and been like, they still struggle with ball pressure because there's only one guy who can consistently break you down off the dribble. And again, like I think, is Alvarado the best at that? No, but you don't need the best. You just need somebody somebody else who can do it to some reasonable level. And like the kind of parallel
We've seen it with Kolek. Right?
Yeah.
When he's playing well, his value is he can ball handle and make decisions, and the part of his value that hurts is when he bleeds on defense. The difference is Jose Alvarado is not going to do that to you on defense. So you're getting the same organization and minimum ball handling, better shooting, and vastly better defense.
And the main thing with Kolek right now is he's really struggling with ball pressure because he doesn't trust his right hand at all. Jose Alvarado is a better ball handler, and is he as good of a passer as Kolek? No, and I think that's actually what sucks right now is that Kolek is struggling so much with ball pressure because when he's playing well, he's actually the perfect bench point guard for Karl Anthony Towns. Like I think those two together are very kind of promising. But you can't consistently get that because he can't consistently do the things that you need him to do for that to thrive. just by the way, this is kind of crazy. Tyler Kolek has played 104 minutes this season with Carl Anthony Towns on the floor and no Jordan Clarkson. The Knicks are plus 26.66 in those minutes. They have 129.49 offensive rating, 102.83 defensive rating. Now, the defensive rating and offensive rating is probably both skewed each way, but it kind of speaks to really like I think that there's something there with those two guys together. This is actually hilarious. Clarkson, Towns on the floor together without Tyler Kolek. They've played 284 minutes, minus 6.6 net rating, 111.84 offensive rating, 118.44 defensive rating. You see it right there. Like that's literally what I'm talking about. What you're talking about is if you have reservations about Tyler Kolek, which any reasonable front office evaluation should, right? Like at least in the immediate term, you should have reservations about like, oh, can Tyler Kolek actually play in the playoffs? Like that's a valid concern to have, and you should have. I don't know that you can depend on that. I have concerns if you can. I would be lying if I said otherwise. I don't have concerns about Jose Alvarado. Like, do I have concerns that him and Jalen Brunson together might not be viable? Sure, fine. Do I have concerns that like, how are him and like if that's the case, could he cut into Deuce's minutes? Whatever the case, like I have all these different concerns. One concern I don't have about Jose Alvarado, can he play in the postseason? I have zero concern about that. I think he 100% can. And will he get targeted at times because he's a small guy? Sure. You know who else gets targeted at times because he's a small guy? TJ McConnell. TJ McConnell was vital to the Pacers. Not like the number one or number two or number three guy, but he was vital. He was a vital component to the Pacers making the finals last year. That additional ball handling, that ability to run the offense when Halliburton was off the floor, that was key to kind of what gave them balance and effectiveness over 48 minutes. And again, do I think Alvarado is going to be like a star for us? No, but that like genuine competence is a real thing. He provides that, and I got to say, defensively, I'm probably higher on him than you are. I think defensively, like he's a flat out plus. He plays bigger than his size. He does help defense things that are like genuinely insane for somebody of his height. I don't know if you've watched the Pelicans much, and people should not watch the Pelicans much. But like Borrego uses him pretty creatively and in pretty diverse ways defensively. I think it speaks to, again, I get it. He's small. It's not ideal, but the guy plays bigger than his size. It's a cliche, but like he is that guy. He plays with like crazy heart, crazy effort. Who was it that he got into a fight with that he like punched? Some dude that was like a foot
recently, right?
Yeah.
Was it Dylan Brooks? It was someone on the Suns.
Was it Mark Williams? I think it might have been Mark Williams.
Yeah, it was Mark Williams.
Yeah.
Mark Williams is slapping Jose Alvarado from across the court, bro.
Yeah. So like I'll just say this, and I think we can wrap up here because I know you got to go, Prez. But like, I've constantly pushed back on the idea that this team is soft. I don't think they're soft. I do think that they, we talked about it, they don't have an asshole. I don't think they have a guy who kind of like pushes the envelope. I don't think they have a guy who can bait other teams, opponents on other teams into technicals, into kind of losing their cool, losing their head. Alvarado can do that. Alvarado will push buttons. You know what I mean? He can push your button, and he can really, really get in your head. And they could use that. They could use somebody who plays on the edge like that. And I think, I've been saying this since last year. I thought that last year. I don't think they've had a guy like that plays on the edge. And I don't know if that's intentional or not, but yeah, bring me a guy like Jose Alvarado. I think that there's something to be said there.
That stuff is contagious, right? And it's not just the edge, like getting into fights. That's part of it, but like point of attack defense is the best example. Like if you see if you're playing pickup basketball and you see somebody just fucking getting after it, and somebody's trying to cross them up and it's getting nowhere, and they're just getting clamped, I don't know about you, but like when I'm on somebody else on the court on the same defense, I'm like, yeah, let's fucking go. Like lock that motherfucker up, right? Like, and the Knicks are like that. Like whenever they're rolling, you see them hype each other up. But it on defense, it starts at the point of attack. And OG is really the only one who's capable of like lighting a fire via his point of attack defense. Ironically, aside from like Cat, who doesn't switch enough, but like when Cat does get a stop on somebody, it's like you see everybody else get hyped. But like Jose is the type of player, he's small, but he's so agile that it's hard to cross him up and it's hard to blow by him. You could shoot over him, you could walk him down in the post, but you're rarely gonna see somebody just like fucking lose him completely, right? Like and that shaves time off the clock, that hypes up your teammates, that demoralizes the other team. And it's just an element we lack right now. And it's really fucking annoying because you would wish. I mean, Deuce does it. I shouldn't say we like. Deuce does it. Shamit, when he's having a good game, can sometimes do it for stretches versus
You
less
just want
than
more.
other
You
players.
just want more. That's
You
it.
want more. Yeah.
All right. President, you got to get out
Bring
of
me
here.
my
so I think this is
son.
good.
Bring me my
Yeah,
son. That's the moral of this story.
I agree. One of your 15,000 sons in the NBA. Prez, let the people know where they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug.
You can find me at _Presidente on X, where I am not super president, at Presidente on Blue Sky. More likely, you can find me in the Strickland Discord. Join our Discord, where I am still talking draft stuff way more frequently than on the regular internets. And yeah, that's where you find me.
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at Shwin. You can find me in the Discord as well. So I'll plug the Discord. It's awesome. It's a good time. Thank you to our sponsor, FanDuel. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. Thank you for the comments. We appreciate it. That is our show for today. I hope everybody has a great day, a great weekend. Hopefully the Knicks have a great weekend as well. Hopefully everybody other than Drake May and the Patriots has a great weekend. All right, everybody enjoy, and I'll see you on Monday. Peace.